What happens when one of Hollywood's most beloved actors sits down with television's most controversial host, only to discover that the interview was never meant to be fair? Tonight, we're diving into the explosive confrontation that had Brad Pitt walking off Piers Morgan's show, leaving viewers stunned and the host scrambling to save face. This isn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This is the moment when calculated journalism met authentic Hollywood integrity, and the results were absolutely explosive. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling us what you think about media manipulation in celebrity interviews. Trust me, after hearing what really went down, you'll have plenty to say. The tension was palpable from the moment Brad Pitt walked into the studio. Piers Morgan had been hyping this interview for weeks, promising viewers an unfiltered look at one of cinema's biggest stars. What the audience didn't know was that Morgan had already decided the narrative he wanted to create, regardless of what Pitt actually had to say. As the cameras rolled, Morgan's opening question seemed innocent enough. "Brad, you've been in the spotlight for decades. How do you handle the constant scrutiny?" But there was something in his tone, a smugness that suggested he wasn't really interested in the answer. Pitt, ever the professional, began to respond thoughtfully about the balance between public and private life. "Well, Piers, I think anyone in this business learns that you have to develop a thick skin. But more importantly, you have to stay true to your values and the people who matter to you," Pitt said, his voice calm and measured. Morgan interrupted before Pitt could finish his thought. "But surely you must admit that some of the criticism you've faced over the years has been justified. I mean, your personal life has been quite the roller coaster, hasn't it?" The shift in tone was immediate and jarring. Pitt's expression changed slightly, a flicker of confusion crossing his face. "I'm sorry, what exactly are you referring to?" "Oh, come on, Brad, we both know what I'm talking about. The divorces, the custody battles, the way you've handled relationships. In the public eye, don't you think you owe the public some accountability for the drama you've created?" This wasn't the interview Pitt had agreed to. The pre-end discussion had focused on his upcoming film projects and his production company's humanitarian efforts. Nothing about personal relationships had been mentioned. Yet, here was Morgan clearly trying to ambush him with tabloid-level questions, disguised as serious journalism. "Piers, I think there might be some confusion here. I was told this interview would focus on my work and my foundation's projects. I'm not really comfortable discussing personal matters that involve other people, especially when they're not here to speak for themselves." Morgan leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with the kind of predatory excitement that made viewers uncomfortable. "But isn't that exactly the problem, Brad? You want all the benefits of fame, the adoration, the massive paychecks, but you don't want to be held accountable when things go wrong. You can't have it both ways." The accusation hung in the air like a challenge. Pitt took a deep breath, clearly trying to maintain his composure. "I think you're misunderstanding something fundamental here. I've never shied away from taking responsibility for my actions. But there's a difference between accountability and exploitation. What you're doing right now feels a lot more like the latter. Exploitation." Morgan's voice rose with mock indignation. "I'm asking legitimate questions that millions of people want answered. You're a public figure, Brad. You don't get to pick and choose what aspects of your life people can discuss." The conversation was spiraling exactly where Morgan wanted it to go. He had done this countless times before, using his platform to corner celebrities into uncomfortable situations that made for compelling television. But Pitt wasn't playing along the way most guests did. "Actually, Piers, I do get to choose. That's exactly what I get to do. I'm here as a guest, not as a defendant in some trial you've decided to conduct. If you want to discuss my films, my production work, or the humanitarian projects I'm involved in, I'm happy to do that. But I'm not going to sit here and be ambushed with questions designed to create drama for your show." Morgan's mask slipped slightly, revealing the calculated nature of his approach. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. Brad, you're being defensive about perfectly reasonable questions. Don't you think that reaction tells us something about your character?" The audacity of the statement was breathtaking. Morgan had essentially admitted that he was trying to provoke a reaction, then criticized Pitt for having one. It was a textbook example of the kind of manipulative interviewing that had made Morgan both famous and infamous. "My character," Pitt's voice remained level, but there was steel beneath it. "Now, Piers, let me tell you something about character. Character is being honest about your intentions. Character is treating your guests with respect. Character is not pretending to conduct serious journalism while actually just trying to create controversy for ratings." The studio fell silent except for the hum of cameras. Production assistants exchanged glances, sensing that something was going very wrong or very right, depending on your perspective. This wasn't the typical celebrity interview where the star played along with the host's game. Morgan realized he was losing control of the narrative, so he doubled down in the most aggressive way possible. "So now you're questioning my journalistic integrity. That's rich coming from someone who can't even answer a simple question about his own life choices." I'm not questioning your journalistic integrity, Piers. I'm questioning whether you have any. The words landed like a physical blow. Morgan's face flushed red, and for a moment, his carefully constructed television persona cracked completely. How dare you come on my show and insult me like that? Who do you think you are? I'm someone who expected to be treated with basic professional courtesy, not ambushed by someone more interested in creating drama than conducting an actual interview. Pitt's voice was still calm, but there was an edge to it now that suggested his patience was wearing thin. Morgan tried to regain his composure, but the damage was done. His true nature had been exposed in front of the cameras, and everyone in the room could see it. This is my show, Brad. I asked the questions here, and I expect honest answers. Then maybe you should start by being honest about what kind of questions you're planning to ask before the cameras roll. The confrontation had reached a boiling point, and neither man was backing down. Morgan's face was now a deep shade of red. His composure completely shattered. He had built his career on making celebrities uncomfortable, but he had never encountered someone who so directly challenged his methods on live television. The power dynamic he was used to controlling had completely shifted. You know what, Brad? I think our viewers are seeing the real you right now. The arrogant movie star who thinks he's above being questioned like everyone else. This is exactly the kind of entitled behavior that people are sick of from Hollywood elites. Pitt let out a short, humorless laugh, entitled, Piers, I came here in good faith to discuss my work and projects that actually matter. You're the one who feels entitled to ambush your guests and then act like the victim when they don't play along with your games. The camera operators were having a field day. This was the kind of unscripted television that networks dream of, but it was also becoming increasingly uncomfortable for everyone involved. Morgan's producers were frantically whispering in their headsets, unsure whether to cut to commercial or let the train wreck continue. My games. Morgan's voice was getting higher, more defensive. I'm doing what journalists are supposed to do. I'm asking the tough questions that others are afraid to ask. If you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews. There's a difference between tough questions and cheap shots. Piers, a real journalist would know that difference. What you're doing isn't journalism. It's tabloid ambush tactics dressed up as serious television. The insult hit its mark. Morgan prided himself on being seen as a serious journalist, despite his reputation for sensationalism. Having that credibility questioned so directly and so publicly was clearly getting under his skin. I've been doing this for 30 years. Brad, I've interviewed presidents, prime ministers, and some of the most important figures in the world. I don't need some actor lecturing me about journalism. And yet here you are wasting everyone's time trying to create drama instead of having an actual conversation. Those presidents and prime ministers you mentioned, did you try to ambush them, too, or do you save that special treatment for actors? Morgan was spiraling now, his professional mask completely gone. This is unbelievable. You come on my show, you insult me, you question my integrity, and now you're trying to make me look like the bad guy? I'm not trying to make you look like anything, Piers. I'm just responding to what you're actually doing. You started this interview with an agenda, and when I didn't play along, you got angry. That's not my fault. The studio audience, which had been silent throughout most of the exchange, began to murmur. They could sense that something significant was happening, that this wasn't just another celebrity interview. This was a real confrontation between two very different approaches to public discourse. Morgan tried to regain control by appealing directly to his audience. Ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Hollywood stars who think they can control the narrative, who think they can dictate terms to journalists. Brad Pitt is showing us his true colors right now. But Pitt wasn't intimidated by the attempt to turn the audience against him. The only thing I'm showing is that I won't be manipulated by someone who's more interested in creating controversy than having an honest conversation. Your audience deserves better than this kind of manufactured drama. Manufactured drama. You're the one who's being dramatic, Brad. All I did was ask you some questions about your life, and you've turned it into this whole production. Questions about my life. Piers, you didn't ask questions. You made accusations. You didn't want to explore anything meaningful. You wanted to create a moment that would go viral. There's a difference between curiosity and exploitation. Morgan was now completely off script, his anger making him sloppy. So what if I did? That's television, Brad. That's what people want to see. They don't want some sanitized PR interview where you just talk about your movies. They want reality. The admission was stunning. Morgan had essentially confessed that he had deliberately set up the interview to be confrontational, not informative. He had given away his entire strategy in a moment of frustration. Reality? You call this reality? This is you trying to manipulate both me and your audience for ratings. Real reality would be having an honest conversation about things that actually matter, not trying to create artificial conflict. Artificial conflict. There's nothing artificial about this, Brad. This is as real as it gets. You're angry because someone finally called you out on your behavior. I'm not angry, Piers. I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that someone with your platform chooses to use it this way. I'm disappointed that you think this is what journalism looks like, and I'm disappointed that you're so committed to this approach that you can't even recognize how it's failing right now. The word failing hit Morgan like a physical blow. His entire career was built on the idea that he was successful at getting under people's skin, at creating compelling television through confrontation. Having someone suggest that his methods were actually failing was devastating to his ego. Failing, this interview is going to be talked about for months. Everyone will be discussing it. That's not failure. That's success. Being talked about isn't the same thing as being respected, Piers. People might discuss this interview, but they're not going to respect the way you conducted it. There's a difference between being infamous and being accomplished. Morgan's response was swift and vicious. Don't lecture me about respect when you've spent your entire career trading on your looks and charm instead of any real talent or intelligence. At least I've built something meaningful. The personal attack was a bridge too far. Up until this point, the confrontation had been about professional behavior and journalistic ethics. But now Morgan had made it personal, and the atmosphere in the studio shifted dramatically. Pitt's expression hardened, and for the first time in the interview, he looked genuinely angry. There it is, the real Piers Morgan. When your tactics don't work, when someone doesn't play your game, you resort to personal attacks. This is exactly what I was talking about, personal attacks. I'm stating facts. You're an actor, Brad. You pretend to be other people for a living. I deal with reality. Reality. You wouldn't recognize reality if it was sitting right in front of you. You're so obsessed with creating drama that you've forgotten what actual human interaction looks like. The tension in the studio was now unbearable. Production assistants were openly staring, and the camera operators were struggling to keep up. With the rapid-fire exchange, this had gone far beyond anything anyone had expected. Morgan realized he had crossed a line, but instead of backing down, he doubled down with even more venom. You know what your problem is, Brad? You've been surrounded by yesmen and sycophants for so long that you can't handle it when someone actually challenges you. This is probably the first honest conversation you've had in years. Pitt shook his head slowly, a look of genuine sadness crossing his face. Honest conversation. Piers, you ambushed me, lied about the nature of this interview, made personal attacks, and now you're trying to convince yourself that this is honesty. This isn't honesty. This is cruelty disguised as journalism. Cruelty? Oh, give me a break. If you think this is cruel, you're even more sheltered than I thought. This is just basic accountability. Something you've clearly never experienced. How? And basic accountability would be you acknowledging that you deliberately misled me about what this interview would be about. Basic accountability would be you admitting that you're more interested in creating viral moments than actually informing your audience. Morgan's laugh was bitter and harsh. Viral moments. You think I need to create viral moments? I am a viral moment, Brad. I'm appointment television. People tune in to see me, not whatever sanitized nonsense you wanted to peddle. People tune in to see you humiliate your guests. That's what you're proud of. That's the legacy you want to leave behind. I'm proud of the fact that I get real reactions from people. I break through the PR facade and show audiences who these celebrities really are. Like right now, everyone watching can see exactly who Brad Pitt really is. Pitt stood up slowly, his movement deliberate and controlled. The gesture sent a ripple of tension through the studio. You're absolutely right, Piers. Everyone watching can see exactly who we both really are. They can see someone who came here in good faith, and they can see someone who chose to exploit that good faith for cheap entertainment. Sit down, Brad. We're not done here. Actually, we are done. I'm not going to sit here and be your entertainment anymore. This isn't an interview, it's a circus. And I'm not going to be your performing monkey. Morgan's eyes flashed with panic. Having a major celebrity walk off his show would be humiliating, but he was too committed to his attack to back down now. Running away. That's your solution. Just walk away when things get tough. I'm not running away from anything. I'm walking away from someone who has no interest in having a real conversation. There's a difference. This is a real conversation. Brad, this is probably the most real conversation you've had on television in your entire career. Everything else has just been carefully orchestrated PR. Pitt paused at the edge of the interview area, turning back to face Morgan one last time. You know what's sad about this, Piers? You actually had an opportunity here. You could have had a genuine conversation with someone who's passionate about his work, who's involved in meaningful projects, who has stories worth telling. Instead, you chose to turn it into this spectacle. Spectacle. This is journalism, Brad. Real journalism, not the softball questions you're used to getting from entertainment reporters. Real journalism involves preparation, respect for your subject, and genuine curiosity about their story. What you've done here today is the opposite of all of those things. You've shown no preparation beyond planning your attack, no respect for me as a person or professional, and absolutely no curiosity about anything meaningful. Morgan was now standing too, his face red with anger and embarrassment. Don't you dare lecture me about journalism. I've been doing this since before you were famous. I've won awards, I've broken major stories, I've interviewed world leaders, and yet here you are wasting everyone's time trying to create drama with an actor instead of doing anything that actually matters. Those world leaders you mentioned, what do you think they would say about this interview? What do you think they would say about the way you've conducted yourself today? The question hit home. Morgan prided himself on his serious political interviews, and having someone suggest that his behavior today would undermine his credibility in those contexts was devastating. They would say I was doing my job. They would say I was holding a public figure accountable for his actions. No, Piers. They would say you were being a bully. They would say you were more interested in creating controversy than seeking truth. And they would be right. Morgan made one last desperate attempt to regain control. You can't just walk away from this. Brad, you agreed to do this interview. You have an obligation to finish it. My obligation was to participate in an interview, not to be ambushed and attacked. You violated the basic trust that makes interviews possible. You broke the agreement first. I didn't break anything. I asked tough questions. That's what journalists do. No, Piers. What journalists do is seek truth, inform their audience, and treat their subjects with basic human dignity. You've done none of those things today. As Pitt began to walk away, Morgan called out desperately. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Brad, you can't handle the heat, so you're running away. This is who you really are. Pitt stopped and turned back one final time, his voice calm but firm. The only thing I can't handle is watching someone with your platform use it to spread negativity and division instead of actually contributing something meaningful to the world. You had a chance to do better today and you chose not to. That's on you, not me. Come back here, Brad, we're not finished. Yes, we are. And frankly, I think your audience deserves better than this kind of manufactured outrage. They deserve hosts who actually care about informing them, not just entertaining them with other people's discomfort. Morgan's final words were shouted as Pitt walked off the set. This is who Brad Pitt really is. Everyone, this is how he handles adversity. Remember this the next time you see him pretending to be a hero in one of his movies. But the damage was done. The cameras had captured everything, and it was clear to anyone watching who had behaved professionally and who had devolved into petty attacks. Morgan sat back down, trying to regain his composure, but the interview had exposed him in ways he never intended. The studio fell silent except for the hum of equipment. Production assistants looked at each other uncertainly, unsure of how to proceed. Morgan stared at the empty chair where Pitt had been sitting, perhaps finally realizing the magnitude of what had just happened. This wasn't just a celebrity walking off a show. This was a masterclass in how to maintain dignity under pressure, and how the absence of that dignity becomes glaringly obvious when contrasted with someone who possesses it. The confrontation had revealed everything viewers needed to know about both men, and the verdict was clear. In trying to tear down his guest, Morgan had only succeeded in exposing his own character, or lack thereof. That's the incredible story of how Brad Pitt turned the tables on Piers Morgan, exposing the manipulative tactics that too many television hosts use to exploit their guests. What did you think of Brad's response to Morgan's ambush? Should more celebrities stand up to this kind of treatment? Hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you would have done in Brad's position.